In 2020, while millions lost their jobs during the pandemic, one man made more money than anyone in history, $150 billion. That's more wealth than the combined GDP of 140 countries, earned by a single person in just 1 year. Today, that man, Elon Musk, is worth nearly $500 billion, more money than the entire economy of Sweden, Belgium, or Argentina. But here's what's fascinating. This same man was once a bullied kid who couldn't even get a job at Netscape. He was forced to sleep on the office floor of his first startup, shower at the YMCA, and share a single computer with his co-founder. So how did Elon Musk go from being rejected by every Silicon Valley company he applied to becoming the wealthiest person in human history? That's exactly what we're about to discover. At just 12 years old, young Elon was already showing signs of his future success. While other kids were playing video games, he was creating them. After teaching himself programming in just 3 days, completing a 6-month course through pure obsession, he developed a space-themed game called Blastar and sold it to a magazine for $500. But life wasn't all early victories for young Musk. In fact, his teenage years in South Africa were marked by brutal bullying. At age 15, a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs and beat him so severely that he had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. The bullying was so intense that Musk would often eat lunch alone, hiding in remote corners of his school to avoid his tormentors. "I was almost beaten to death," he would later recall, his voice still carrying the weight of those memories. But Musk had a dream: to reach America, the land where he believed anything was possible. At 17, he left South Africa for Canada with just $2,000 in his pocket. To survive, he took on whatever jobs he could find, cleaning boilers at a lumber mill for $18 per hour, cutting lumber in dangerously cold conditions, and even shoveling grain in a hot, dangerous silo where people would occasionally die from falling in and suffocating. Despite graduating with degrees in economics and physics from the University of Pennsylvania, Silicon Valley wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. Musk applied to Netscape but never even got a response. He even tried hanging around their office lobby hoping to strike up a conversation, but was too shy to approach anyone. "I could either watch the company I wanted to work for from the sidelines," he later said, "or start my own." With no companies willing to hire him, Musk decided to start his own. Along with his brother Kimball, he founded Zip2, an online city guide. But this wasn't some cushy startup with fancy offices and ping-pong tables. The brothers were so broke they couldn't afford both an apartment and an office. Their solution? Sleep in the office. They rented a tiny space in Palo Alto, put a couch in it, and took turns sleeping there at night. They showered at the YMCA and shared a single computer. The website would run during the day and Elon would program at night, often working 20-hour days fueled by orange juice and hot dogs from a hot dog stand. When his girlfriend visited, she too had to sleep in that office. This was the real Silicon Valley story, not the glamorous version you see in movies, but one of pure survival and determination. And it was about to pay off in ways nobody could have imagined. Getting those first clients for Zip2 proved to be a monumental challenge. Musk and his brother would spend their days going door to door, trying to convince local businesses to pay for something they'd never heard of: an online business directory. Most shop owners would just stare at them blankly when they mentioned the internet. Some would literally slam doors in their faces. "We had no money for advertising," Musk would later recall, "so I would just walk into businesses and try to sell them listings. It was incredibly difficult and demoralizing." Their persistence started paying off when they managed to get a few small businesses on board. The breakthrough came when they convinced their first newspaper to license their platform. Word spread quickly in the publishing industry about this innovative way to bring their directories online. Soon, even the New York Times and Chicago Tribune were knocking on their door. "We went from being nobody to suddenly having the biggest newspapers in the country wanting to work with us," Musk said. This caught the attention of venture capitalists, and in early 1996, more Davido Ventures invested $3 million in Zip2. It was a game-changing moment. Finally, they could move out of that tiny office where they'd been sleeping on the floor. They could hire real engineers, expand their platform, and stop living on hot dogs and oranges. The company grew rapidly over the next 3 years, and in 1999, Compaq Computer came calling with an offer they couldn't refuse. $307 million in cash, plus $34 million in stock options. At just 27 years old, Elon walked away with $22 million. But while most people would have taken that money and retired to a beach somewhere, Musk had bigger plans. He immediately invested $12 million, more than half of his newfound wealth, into his next venture, X.com. His vision? To completely transform the banking industry through the internet. Remember, this was 1999. Most people were still afraid to even type their credit card numbers online. Everyone thought I was crazy, Musk recalled. They said, "You're going to put a bank on the internet? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of." XCOM grew quickly, but it soon faced a fierce competitor, a company called Confinity, which had a money transfer service called PayPal. The two companies were burning through cash trying to outdo each other until they finally realized they'd be stronger together. In March 2000, they merged, with Musk as CEO of the combined company. The future looked bright until it didn't. While Musk was away on his actual honeymoon, Peter Thiel and other executives orchestrated a coup, convincing the board to replace him as CEO. The reasons were complex. Disagreements over the technical infrastructure, concerns about Musk's leadership style, and personality clashes all played a part. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but Musk made a crucial decision. Instead of walking away angry, he kept his shares in the company. Sometimes, he would later say, "You have to play the long game." That decision would prove to be one of the smartest of his life. In 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for a staggering $1.5 billion. Musk, as the largest shareholder with 11.7% of the company, walked away with $165 million after taxes. The young immigrant who once slept on an office floor and lived on hot dogs had just become one of Silicon Valley's biggest success stories. But for Elon Musk, this wasn't the end. It was barely even the beginning. With this newfound wealth, he was about to embark on his most ambitious ventures yet, ones that would truly change the world. With $165 million from PayPal's sale burning a hole in his pocket, Musk made what many considered his craziest decision yet. He invested $100 million, nearly two-thirds of his entire fortune, into starting a rocket company. His goal? To make humanity a multi-planetary species by colonizing Mars. Most people thought he had lost his mind. The space industry was dominated by government agencies and massive defense contractors. The idea that a private company could succeed where only superpowers had ventured before seemed absurd. But Musk wasn't done taking risks. While pouring money into SpaceX, he simultaneously invested $6.5 million into a tiny electric car startup called Tesla. At the time, Tesla wasn't even a proper car manufacturer. It was just a small team working in a garage, modifying existing cars into electric vehicles. The last successful new American car company had been Chrysler in 1925. Every other attempt had failed. Electric cars were seen as a joke, slow, ugly vehicles that could barely travel 50 miles before needing a recharge. But Musk saw something different. He believed electric cars were the future, and Tesla could lead that revolution. By 2008, both companies were on the brink of collapse. SpaceX had attempted 3 rocket launches, and all 3 had failed spectacularly. They had money for just one more attempt. Tesla was bleeding cash, unable to deliver its first car, the Roadster, to customers. The global financial crisis had frozen all investment. Musk was down to his last dollars, going through a divorce, and had to borrow money from friends just to pay his rent. He was forced to make an impossible choice. He could save one company with his remaining money, but not both. Instead, he doubled down, investing his last dollars into both companies, sometimes sleeping on the factory floor to save time between working on both ventures. Then, in a span of weeks, everything changed. SpaceX's 4th launch attempt succeeded perfectly, and NASA awarded them a $1.6 billion contract. Tesla finally began delivering Roadsters to customers, generating crucial revenue. Both companies had been saved at the last possible moment. This marked the beginning of what would become the greatest accumulation of wealth in human history. The real explosion in Musk's net worth came from Tesla's incredible stock market performance. As the world embraced electric vehicles, Tesla's share price began to soar. In 2020 alone, during the height of the pandemic, Tesla's stock rose by an astounding 720%. This single year of growth added over $150 billion to Musk's net worth. That's equivalent to making $410 million every single day, or about $17 million per hour, even while he slept. The growth continued as Tesla expanded globally, building massive factories in China and Germany. SpaceX also reached new heights, becoming the first private company to send astronauts to the International Space Station. By 2024, Musk's net worth had reached nearly $500 billion, making him not just the richest person alive, but the wealthiest human being in history. To put this in perspective, if you earned $1 million every single day since Columbus first sailed to America in 1492, you still wouldn't have as much money as Elon Musk has today. Today, Musk's empire extends far beyond Tesla and SpaceX. His newest venture, xAI, is valued at over $55 billion. Neuralink, his brain-computer interface company, is worth more than $30 billion. And despite its controversies, his purchase of Twitter, now X, has maintained significant value. Combined, these companies have made Musk so wealthy that he could theoretically buy every single team in the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL, and still have enough money left over to buy Disney. Yet, despite being worth nearly $500 billion, more than the entire economy of Sweden, Belgium, or Argentina, Elon Musk claims he can't even afford a house. And surprisingly, he's not entirely wrong. While he may be the wealthiest human being in history on paper, 99% of his fortune is tied up in shares of his companies. He can't simply cash out and spend it without potentially destroying the very thing that made him rich. So while other billionaires buy super yachts and private islands, Musk lives in a $50,000 prefab house in Texas and has sold off most of his possessions. When he officially became the richest person in the world, his response perfectly captured his unique character. He simply tweeted, "How strange." Well, back to work.